Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Unfucking Your CX. As you know, I'm your host, Zack Hamilton, and I know you really don't give a shit. What you care about is who's joining today in the hot seat and what's the topic making them cringe that they want to unfuck. And I'm excited for my guest, Mikkel, who we recently connected over LinkedIn and even before the holidays, and now we're here. So, Mikkel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Zach.
Before we jump into it, I like asking this question to set the scene because these types of conversations, they don't just happen, right? Typically, there's that safety piece. So is that for, restaurant, pub, on a walk, at a sporting event? Where do you typically kind of let loose and have these conversations?
Well, I think I'm a bit unorthodox in terms of I'd like to have that in the boardroom.
Mm,
So, I'm an advisor, right? So when I meet with my clients, that would normally be C-level. I would actually challenge them. So no matter how good they are, I'm going to challenge them to be even better. And for that reason, I will actually challenging them with one of the biggest concerns that I have for most of companies around, and that's not taking CX too serious.
I love that. I love how you just directly approach it and challenge it. And I think that's what's needed more in this discipline. I think too many CX leaders, I don't think have the courage to do that. So I'm looking forward to today. And I know, you've been a senior advisor to some of the best companies around the world. What's that? Is that topic that they're just not taking it serious enough? Or is it something else that's really making you cringe right now?
I think the problem is we need to educate them because when you meet most of the companies around, they would say that they're pretty good at this CX thing, right? Actually, they can't even articulate whatever that is. So some have bought a CRM system, so some kind of technology. Some has made some kind of a point scheme loyalty program thing. That's also nice, but that's definitely not CX as a whole. So everybody's talking about this, but not many is actually taking responsibility for something, making this work all through the organization and all the way through the to the customers as well. So I think that when I meet with the decision makers, they tend to have a task in educating them how much money they are leaving on the table every month because they're not taking care of customers because they think they are.
Yeah, I think this is such a great vantage point. I mean, one of the conversations that keeps happening over and over in different, community threads and organizations that I'm in, whether it's Slack or Reddit or Discord, but even just the chatter is, I don't think my CX or I don't think my executive leaders care. And I actually challenge that notion back and I say, it's not that our executive leaders don't care. If they didn't care, you wouldn't have that technology platform investment that you're leveraging for VOC. And quite frankly, you wouldn't be here either. They cared at one point. You just never showed up with the receipts, which is what you're talking about around ROI. And so what's happened is they just look at it as, hey, it's an insights program that they're not taking serious. Is that kind of the same thing that you're seeing kind of from I'm taking this kind of vantage point from CX leaders. Are you kind of seeing that same reciprocity from executive team?
Oh yes, definitely. And I think, well, you can put it quite easy, show me money, right? Because I think the biggest problem is you're speaking the wrong language, right? Because C-level, at least some C-level can't spell customer, right? They don't care. They have a business to run. They have profits to make, revenues to increase or whatever. So if you're not speaking that language, basically you will not have their attention. Well, you can have their attention to a certain point, but then basically that's it. And I think my problem is that most companies see CX as a nice to have thing.
Yeah.
Right? We want happy customers. Yes, of course, we need to make customers satisfied and stuff like that, right? But it's nice to have. And when the going gets tough and we need to cut some cost or something, CX budgets are some of the first to go, right? So the problem is making sure that the top acknowledge the fact that CX is not nice to have. CX is need to have. So you need to prove the business case. You need to argue for that. I'll come back to that because that's actually
Yeah.
one of my points.
Yeah.
So the point is, you need to speak their language. You need to argue why this is so important for them, why they should pay so much attention.
Yeah, spot on. We couldn't be more aligned. I think this is why you and I had that great connection before the holidays. The one thing that was going through my mind for many of our listeners when Michael was talking about Show Me the Money, how about Jerry Maguire, right? In the movie Show Me the Money. Like, you mean it on the phone. Like that's where I see, like, I just envision a CEO like, show me the money, right? Michael, there's so many CX practitioners out there who just one struggle to get the engagement of the C-suite, right? They are begging for that seat at the table, which comes with translating, and we'll get into your player tips. So for them who are on the line, who feel burnout and frustrated because they believe the story that they're telling themselves is my executive team doesn't care. What's the first player tip that you have for them to really get that executive leadership team engaged and caring about it again?
My 3 player tips actually comes in sequence, because first of all, you need to catch the attention, and to put it simple, you need to catch the attention by proving the business value. So in some way or form, and you can do that quite simple, or you can do that very complex. But of course, you should start out with whatever you have. So the idea of proving and arguing for the consequence of having, let's say, less satisfied or disloyal customers. What is the consequence of that? Because, I speak with companies and they talk about, yeah, we have an average spend, or we have an average lifetime value. I mean, a simple thing like, tell me, what is the difference in average spend, lifetime value, and share of wallet when you compare detractors, neutrals, and promoters? I mean, as simple as that. Just chop your custom base into 3 and show the difference. And then make the calculations for every percentage they can change from red to yellow or yellow to green. What would that bring to us? This is as simple as it can be, right? It's something that everybody should be able to do, or actually fairly simple should be able to do. So that's the first thing, because you need to catch the attention. Otherwise, the attention span of the C-level is so short when it comes to CX. So that would be my first very important argument. And just a short story for this. We had a conference, invited the global strategy director of strategy for Jumeirah Group. That's a 5-star luxury hotel out of Dubai, with the 7-star Burj Al Arab and stuff like that. So he did his presentation. After the presentation, one of the participants asked him a question. And bear in mind, we're in Denmark, right? We speak Danish. So everything was in English. And this Danish participant asked in English, so how do you persuade your management team to do all the stuff that you've just described? And he answered by saying, listen, sorry, I don't understand your question. And very politely, she repeated her question in English because she thought it was a language, and said, well, I did understand, but I don't understand why you asked that question. Actually, it's the other way around with us. My management team expect from us to invest and use resources to create even a bigger satisfaction, because that's at the core of our business. We have understood the business value of this. So I'll be fired if we're not going to do it. It's not the other way around.
Yeah. Such a great point here. And it kind of when you were just kind of elaborating on that, when I first started leading CX, I couldn't get prioritization or funding for anything. And the reason for it is I was just an insights manager, right? I was just giving insights. But when I learned how to connect the dots to business impact, when I actually learned, our executives were more concerned with loss of version than the potential upside. And I communicated more in, hey, here's a customer friction that's just compounding over time. It's already cost us $9 million. And if we don't do something now, it's going to cost us another whatever. After that, Michael, I never got a no when it came to investment. And that's what led to us delivering 120 million in impact over 5 years. Like, it's just learning how to speak their language. And it goes back to what he was just saying, right? No, our executives invest in us because they expect us to be good stewards of what that investment is and how to create better experiences.
I remember, 10 years ago or something like that, We had a first meeting with the CEO of a pension fund, a huge business running a multiple company here in the Scandinavian markets. And I knew that this guy, he was all for investment and not for customers. Customers was a necessary evil, right? So we presented, and at one point we showed a slide where we said, okay, here's the percentages of red, yellow, and green customers in a loyalty segmentation model. And he couldn't care much about it. I mean, he was like, yeah, okay, can't lose them all. So yeah, we need to have some of those in red as well. But at the point, next slide, I mean, I've changed all the percentages into billions of dollars under administration for each of these company clients.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly he realized that, I mean, let's just say 30% of your customers are detractors or red in some way or form. So they're red. But they're actually not just representing 30% of the business that you run. It's actually 40 or 50, because it's some of the big clients that are not satisfied with you, right? As soon as he saw his funds under administration, he immediately, turned, saying, this is unacceptable. I need action plans for each of these within 14 days, blah, 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 blah. Then he went into full combat mode, right? So he understood now the impact of his world. And for that reason, you got his undivided attention. But up until then, he couldn't spell customer.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just doing this exercise with a retailer, kind of very similar with the CEO. And, when I first started leading this engagement, one of the things that I like to do is I like to ask two questions. One is to the CEO, what's one customer friction that you've prioritized in the last 90 days? Typically, it's very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I like to go to, the CX team, and I'll say, hey, I want you to log into, your text analytics, pull up your topics and themes, and let's look at your heat map, because that's essentially the friction heat map, right? And so as we started to calculate the friction on a trailing 12-month basis, their customer friction tax cost them over $270 million.
Yeah.
They're investing $180 million in customer acquisition cost, same time period. When we reported that out to the CEO, very similar, kind of sprung into action, wanted to dig in more. We spent probably almost 4.5 hours going deep into all the different frictions and really bringing it to light. And then I think he prioritized 6 things that day. But it's all about, you can motivate them to take action. To your player tip, you have to speak their language. You have to show them the financial impact. I think that's such a powerful one. What's the next one?
Well, I think so. First, we have caught the attention, right? So now they know this is important, and we need to now disclose for them that they're not nearly as customer-centric as they think they are. So my player tip number 2 is, in some way or form, you should display the lack of customer centricity or the gap that is there. So I talk very much about a customer-centric maturity assessment in some way or form. Okay, so the problem is that most companies say, okay, this is important, but we're pretty good at this, right? And then somebody needs to tell them, no, you are not. So from our type of work, we work with something we call a customer-centric maturity assessment, but I mean, you can do something else. But the point is, we work with 4 different areas that is of importance. So 4 different key areas that should be in place. And we talk about willing, skilled, able, and aligned. All right. So the organization should be willing to actually do the work, the CX work. So they should be motivated for this. And then they should be skilled to do it. I mean, so do you have the right education, the right training, the right support systems, technology available, whatever. So are you motivated for this? Are you actually capable? Are you skilled of doing this? And then the able, that would be, are you allowed to do this? So a lot of companies around, a lot of employees are being told, town halls and stuff, that this is important. Customers are key. We need to do this. But every time you then start trying to do something, you're being told like, yeah, but this is more important. You should do this first. And then if there's time, you can, play around with this CX thing, right? So in that respect, this is not good enough. So do you have the management support? That's the able. So willing, skilled, able, and then aligned. Because a key problem in most companies around is they are still very siloed. So, it can be a massive initiative of CX in the marketing department, right? So all kinds of stuff, but at customer service, they don't know anything about this, or even product development doesn't align with these things. So we need to understand that there's an alignment cross-functional or cross-organizational to this. We need to speak the same language. We need to talk about the same things. We need to be able to translate, overall goals for being more customer-centric in terms of what is that for my department? What is that for me? And that needs to be aligned across. So these 4 areas is important. And the point here that I would try to make is, okay, these are the areas that you need to work with. And what we normally would do is then we do actually a simple survey where we are asking a number of questions into each of these areas to the management team and to the rest of the organization. So we are then looking for the perception gaps. Yeah. If the management team is big enough, we are actually displaying a perception gap within the management team. I mean, guys, if you're not even aligned on CX, on where we are and what we do, how should we ever be able to have this organization actually work as one, right? So that's one thing. And another thing would be the gap, the perception gap between how management think we're performing and how the, let's call it frontline, are doing.
Yeah.
So in that respect, displaying the fact that not many people in this organization, perhaps even not within the management team, are agreeing to where we are. So we should align. And at the time when we have aligned, when we actually find the, argue for and find the level that we are at, we need to discuss, is this ambitious enough? I mean, is this where we want to be? No. Normally that would be the answer. We need to be much better than this. So alignment and realizing how, not poor, but at least how much potential there is still to do. That's basically my player 2 tip.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think, the siloed piece has been an issue for 20 plus years, right? And if you think about it, everyone thought the SaaS platform would solve it by bringing all signals into one specific platform. That still has never helped with the silo piece. And one of the things that I've found is the internal kind of language taxonomy that they use, right? Because customer churn to the CMO is completely different to the customer churn, how they define it from an operations piece, or vice versa, right? So everyone has a different perception of what each metric is based off of, are they held accountable to that metric, or they just support the metric in some way? And one of the things that I had to do internally was, how do I get everyone speaking the same language? That drives the alignment piece that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
And it's so important. And it just goes back to it's the language of P&L.
It is. I mean, so we need to speak the right language, and we need to make sure that we're actually using the right wording.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great. What's your player tip number 3?
Well, so when we have now the undivided attention of the C-level and management team, and we also have them realizing that there is a huge potential, they're not as customer-centric as they think, we're basically ready to go. And then my 3rd player tip would be what I normally would call the Kaizen attitude. So, a lot of companies try to take upon themselves the idea of how to take good care of customers in different ways. I've been working a lot within the automotive industry for many years also. Toyota and Lexus is quite unique in that industry in terms of this Japanese culture that they apply to the way they are, working. So, the Kaizen, the continuous improvement, never be satisfied, even though you're amongst the best. They are still relentlessly looking for how to do better. The ikigai, that's another concept of, the reason for being, why are we here and why are we doing exactly what we're doing right now? That makes sense. But perhaps both in hospitality, but also in the automotive industry, the omotenashi. The omotenashi is a concept of wholehearted, selfless hospitality. So it's the idea of, I like the CEO of Lexus here in Northern Europe, Norway, in Northern Europe. He at one point put out a brilliant quote, I think. He said, at Lexus, we do things a bit different. First, we fix the customer, and then we fix the car. And I think that's just a brilliant quote, because the idea of, the official interaction would be maintaining or servicing the car or something like that. But the main goal is to take care of you. And then, of course, we will be fixing your car and treating you as a guest in our house and all that, that comes with this. I think that's different components of culture that should be. I mean, it's not easy. I know for sure it's not easy, but taking that kind of concept, if you go to customer service, and you still experience a lot of organizations around that talk about, average handling time. So one of the KPIs is how quick can you actually get rid of the customer on the phone, right? Because that's cost effective.
Yep.
But then you can turn to some of the other cases around, old SAPAs or others that talk about, it's not about that. I mean, first time resolution, we'll spend whatever amount of time needed for you to be as happy as possible.
Yeah.
And that's a completely different way of thinking, but also a way of allocating resources.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things that I really love about kind of either Kaizen or in the States, Six Sigma is still pretty big here. Ultimately, it's they're instilling a system in the way in which their organizations are working. And I think what's missing from so many CX strategies and business strategies is that true system. And if you really think about it, the culture of your organization is defined by the ways in which we work. And so most often it comes back to we've never had a customer experience system, which really the CX system is your business system on how it should work. That's typically fundamental, broken, or missing.
Sure. I mean, the fundamentals here are no employee wakes up in the morning with the intent of pissing customers off, right? I mean, that's not, I mean, if they do, we have a completely different situation. So most employees are held back or in other ways restrained from actually doing what feels most natural to them. So I think the idea of, as you said also earlier, friction points in different ways, also friction points in terms of employees, in the automotive industry, again, a lot of resources are spent on administrative work within these sales people. And basically, that's not why they became salesmen. They became salesmen because they want to interact with customers. They want to sell. They don't want to be registering all kinds of stuff in stupid systems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So in that way or form, how can we make sure that people are doing what they're best at and trying to, in that way, optimize?
Yeah. Well said. Michael, this has been such a fantastic conversation. If there's any of our listeners who, they want to go deeper with you on any of these specific topics or player tips, where can they find you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. So Mikkel Korntved on LinkedIn. My company is called Loyalty Group. So find me there and I'll be happy to give any kind of feedback or any kind of inspiration I can.
Yeah, for all of our listeners, we will link the website and also any supporting material in the show notes and the newsletter. Mikkel, thank you for jumping into the hot seat. Come back soon.
Most welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, cheers.